If I could sit the younger version of myself down today, just for a moment, I would tell you something that could shift the very ground beneath your feet. But the truth, I know you wouldn't believe me, not yet. Why? Because right now you still think you have time. You believe life is linear, a straight road stretching endlessly before you. You see happiness, purpose, and success as distant landmarks waiting quietly in the future. Just a little further, just a little more effort, just around the next bend. But let me tell you something that nobody told me soon enough. That road, it's not endless. And one day, sooner than you think, you'll wake up and realize you're not chasing a future anymore. You're standing in it, and in that moment, the things you once thought would make you happy won't matter so much. The fears you clung to so tightly will feel like shadows that never belonged to you. And the biggest question won't be, what's next? It'll be, who am I really, younger? I didn't come alone today. I brought voices with me, voices of men who saw beyond the surface of life, men who understood what most people never even glimpse. Carl Jung, the one who uncovered the hidden layers of who we really are. Abraham Maslow, who redefined what success truly means. Viktor Frankl, who taught that meaning isn't found, it's chosen. Soren Kierkegaard, who showed us that fear is not a threat but a doorway to freedom. Carl Rogers, who helped us realize the life we're living might not be the one we were meant for. And Alfred Adler, who believed we are not prisoners of our past but authors of our future. Each of them brought a truth, and together they carry a message for you, one that could change everything. Because midlife is not a crisis, it's an awakening. And the life that is truly yours, the one with depth, direction, and authenticity, that one hasn't even begun yet. Younger me, you've spent your entire life trying to be the right kind of person, the one who's accepted, respected, admired. You've tried to be the one who makes others proud, the one who fits in. And for years, you've convinced yourself this is who you truly are, the person you show the world, the one who smiles when expected, speaks when spoken to, performs when needed. But listen to me now, really listen, because Carl Jung has something to say to you, something that will unsettle you at first, but ultimately set you free. You are not just the person you present to the world. You are also everything you've buried, the doubts you silence, the anger you suppress, the ambitions you're afraid to chase, the sadness you ignore and tell yourself isn't real. These parts didn't disappear. They became your shadow. And as long as you pretend they don't exist, they will control you quietly from the dark. Jung spent his life studying why people lose themselves, and he discovered something painful and true. Most of us live as only half of who we are. We wear masks, we perform roles, we become whoever we need to be to feel safe. And for a while it works, it really does. But then something happens, a crack forms, the mask slips, and you begin to feel it that something is missing. Not because your life is bad, but because it's incomplete. Midlife is when the shadow comes calling, and it doesn't knock. It kicks down the door. It forces you to look at yourself, not the version you crafted, but the version that's always been hidden. And yes, that can be terrifying, because to accept yourself completely means to face the parts you've spent your whole life avoiding. So what happens if you don't? What if you keep pretending? What if you keep wearing the mask? The shadow doesn't disappear. It takes over. It begins to twist your desires into addictions. It transforms your fears into rage. It makes you resent others for the very things you've disowned in yourself. That's why so many people in midlife feel lost, bitter, or chronically restless. They're not just facing the world, they're battling the unclaimed parts of themselves. But here's the secret Jung wanted you to know. The shadow is not your enemy, it is your missing half. And if you have the courage to turn toward it instead of away from it, you'll discover that everything you've been chasing was hiding there all along. So how do you begin to integrate your shadow? It starts with radical honesty, not the kind that's performative, but the kind that makes you flinch. Stop filtering your thoughts to make them palatable. Notice what irritates you in others, because those are often the parts of yourself you haven't yet accepted. Write down the things you avoid thinking about. Stare at them, question them, sit with them, and slowly, like the slow thaw of spring after a long winter, you begin to feel whole. Jung once said the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, but he also knew it's the most liberating thing you'll ever do, because the moment you stop fighting yourself, you realize you were never broken. You were simply unfinished. And now finally you have a chance to become whole. Younger me, do you remember your first taste of success, the thrill, the rush, that electric feeling of finally being someone you told yourself, this is it. This is the goal, to prove yourself, to win, to build a life that looks impressive from the outside. But let me introduce you to Abraham Maslow. He would gently tell you, you were chasing a dream that wasn't really yours. Maslow spent his life studying what makes people feel deeply fulfilled. And he discovered something most people never do. The ones who feel the deepest sense of meaning aren't the ones who achieved the most. They're the ones who became the most. You've spent years climbing ladders, earning titles, collecting approval, building your reputation brick by brick. And for a long time, it felt like enough. But let me warn you, one day you will wake up, and it will all feel strangely hollow. Not because you failed, but because your soul is being called towards something more. Maslow mapped this out for us, his hierarchy of needs. At first, we pursue security, we seek belonging, we fight to build a stable foundation beneath us. And that's not wrong, it's necessary. But once that ground is built, a new question rises. Now what? That's the moment you enter the realm of self-actualization. That's when you begin to feel that the things that once drove you, achievement status, validation, are losing their grip, and you're being asked to go deeper. Last time we talked about how success isn't about what you have, it's about who you are becoming. But what does that actually look like? How do you know if you're really on the path to becoming, or if you're just stuck in place? Here's the truth. It looks different for everyone. For some people, it means walking away from a career that no longer feels aligned with who they are. For others, it means choosing creativity over convention, connection over status, or personal growth over praise. It's not about throwing everything away. It's about shifting from chasing achievement to seeking meaning. But there's something Maslow never said directly, something he quietly observed through decades of studying human behavior. Most people never make it to self-actualization. They get stuck in survival, stuck in routine, stuck in comfort that quietly becomes a cage. Why? Because it's easy to keep doing what you've always done. It's safe to chase what everyone else says you should want. It's familiar to measure your worth in promotions, paychecks, and approval. So how do you know if this is happening to you? Ask yourself a simple question. Are you still chasing success? Or are you living in a way that feels truly fulfilling? Be honest. If your answer leans toward the chase, toward more better someday, then it's time to pause, to reflect, to rethink everything. This is why so many people in their 40s feel lost, not because they failed, not because they made the wrong choices, but because they're being called to something more. They're being asked to stop proving and start becoming, to stop chasing and start choosing. And here's the great irony, younger me. The moment you stop obsessing over success is the moment you finally find it. Not in wealth, not in titles, but in the quiet, steady certainty that you're finally living the life that was always meant to be yours. Younger me, I know how long you've believed that happiness is something you can catch. That if you just work hard enough, love the right person, live in the right place, then someday finally you'll arrive. And for a while it felt like you were getting closer. Every milestone gave you that rush, that whisper of almost there. But still, something inside never fully settled. No matter how much you achieved, there was always that small, persistent voice asking, is this it? Let me introduce you to Viktor Frankl, a man who survived what most of us cannot even begin to imagine. The Nazi concentration camps. Stripped of everything, his home, his work, his family, even his name, he endured the unendurable. And in the middle of that horror, he discovered something that would change how we understand the human spirit. Happiness isn't something you chase. It's something that emerges when your life is aligned with meaning. Frankl observed that in the darkest, cruelest of places, some people held on. They had nothing left, but they had a reason, a purpose, a why. And he realized something profound. It's not always the strongest who survive. It's the ones who find something worth surviving for. Younger me, you've spent so much of your life chasing happiness, but you've been looking in the wrong places. The watchball, the approval, the achievements, none of it will ever be enough. Because happiness isn't something you get. It's something you allow when your life finally aligns with purpose. So how do you create that kind of purpose, especially when you feel stuck, uninspired, or directionless? Frankl found that meaning comes in three ways: through work, through love, and through suffering. First, meaning through work. Not just having a job, but doing something that calls to you, something that serves a purpose greater than yourself. It doesn't have to be revolutionary. It can be raising a child. It can be creating art. It can be building a community that continues after you're gone. It's not about scale, it's about contribution. Second, meaning through love. Not just romantic love, but deep soul-stirring connection. Friendships that nourish you. Moments of compassion. The people who make you feel seen even when you are silent. If no one in your life knows the real you, you're not truly living yet. Third, meaning through suffering. This one is hardest to understand, but it's the most transformative. When pain comes, and it will, you have a choice. Let it break you or let it change you. Some of the most purpose-driven people in the world are those who turned their deepest wounds into missions. Survivors who became teachers, victims who became leaders, people who once wandered and now light the path for others. Frankl himself said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." So younger me, if you ever feel lost, ask yourself, what are you creating? Who are you loving? What pain are you transforming? Answer those three questions, and you'll never feel aimless again. I also know how afraid you are of change, how much you overthink, how often you hesitate waiting until every possible outcome has been calculated before you act. You tell yourself, one day when I'm ready, I'll take the leap. But here's the truth, you never feel ready. Do you? Soren Kierkegaard understood this exact fear. He called it the dizziness of freedom. That strange, paralyzing moment when you realize your life is fully yours. No script, no guarantees, just you, standing at the edge of the unknown, terrified. What if you fail? What if it's a mistake? What if you lose everything? But Kierkegaard knew something else too. Fear isn't the enemy. Fear is the threshold. It's the doorway to everything your soul is asking you to become. Younger me, you need to hear this. You will never feel ready. And if you wait for that feeling, you'll wait forever. That doesn't mean every fear should be ignored. Fear has its place. So how do you know which fear to listen to? Kierkegaard believed there are two kinds: fear that signals danger and fear that signals growth. The first one protects you. It says, don't touch the fire. But the second, it shows up when you're standing on the edge of something new, something that excites you and terrifies you. That's the fear you must walk toward. Think about it, that job you've always wanted, that move you've never made, that dream you've buried because you were afraid people would laugh. What's really standing between you and the life you want? It's not lack of talent. It's not lack of time. It's fear of the unknown. Kierkegaard's leap of faith wasn't just about belief in God. It was about trusting the unseen, whether that's faith in something higher or faith in yourself. At its core, it's about believing without proof that the life you're meant for is on the other side of fear. One day, younger me, you'll stand at the edge of something you've never done before. Your heart will pound. Your palms will sweat. You'll wonder if you can do this. And in that moment, I need you to remember something. Fear isn't a wall. It's the door. And everything you've ever wanted is waiting just beyond it. Last time we stood at the edge of fear, we saw how it's not a sign to stop, but a sign that you're standing at the threshold of something extraordinary. And now it's time to take the leap. But how? How do you cross the invisible line between the life you know and the one that's waiting for you? First, learn to recognize the moment. If a decision both excites and terrifies you, if it stirs your heart while tightening your chest, pay attention. That's not a warning, that's a signal. A whisper from your future self saying, this is the moment. Second, stop waiting for certainty. It will never come. Certainty is an illusion we cling to when we're afraid to move. Real growth begins when you act before you feel ready. When you walk with shaky legs, not because you are fearless, but because you know standing still costs even more. And third, remember this. The greatest mistake you can make is doing nothing. Soren Kierkegaard warned, to dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself. The leap will always feel impossible until the moment you jump. And then, younger me, you'll realize something profound. You were always meant to fly. Younger me, you've spent so many years trying to be the version of yourself that makes other people comfortable. You've said the right things, played the right roles, worn the right masks, and for a time it worked. You convinced yourself this version of you, the polished one, the approved one, was the real you. But let me ask you something, and be honest. When was the last time you felt truly free? Carl Rogers spent his life exploring what it means to live authentically, and he discovered a painful truth. The further you drift from your true self, the more lost you become. So now I must ask you something difficult. If you stripped away the expectations, if you removed the pressure, if you let go of the fear, who would you be? I know the answer scares you, because you've built a life that looks right on paper in photos and conversations. But inside, something isn't clicking. You keep telling yourself that if you just work harder, prove more, do more, then it'll feel right. But it never does. Because the problem isn't that you haven't done enough. The problem is you haven't been yourself. Rogers called this congruence, the alignment between the person you are on the inside and the life you live on the outside. And younger me, that's the only way you'll ever feel truly alive. But what if you've lost touch with who you are? What if after years of adapting, adjusting, and conforming, you don't even know where to begin? Rogers had an answer. Step 1, stop censoring yourself. Pay attention to the moments when you shrink, when you soften your voice, when you hold back your truth just to keep the peace. Ask yourself, if I wasn't afraid of being judged, what would I say right now? Step 2, notice what excites you, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it seems too small, too impractical, too weird. That spark, that little tug in your chest, that's your real self trying to reach you. Step 3, practice radical self-acceptance. Rogers believed that healing doesn't begin when we try to fix ourselves. It begins when we understand we were never broken. One day younger me pretending will become exhausting. Saying yes to what you don't want, showing up where you don't belong, wearing a life that no longer fits. And when that moment comes, I hope you remember what Rogers taught. The good life is a process, not a state of being. It is a direction, not a destination. And that process, it begins the moment you stop pretending. Younger me, the biggest lie you've ever believed is that your past defines you. You've carried it for years. The mistakes, the regrets, the voices that told you who you were, what you were worth. You thought all of it had carved a permanent path. One you couldn't change, one you couldn't leave. But Alfred Adler would tell you otherwise. He spent his life asking why people stay trapped in cycles of frustration, shame, and self-sabotage. And he found that it's not because of what happened to them, it's because of the story they tell themselves about it. If you believe you're a failure, you'll act like one. If you believe you're unworthy, you'll accept far less than you deserve. If you believe you're stuck, you'll never try to move. But what if that story isn't true? Adler believed that at any moment a person can rewrite their narrative. That you are not the victim of your past. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are not the prisoner of your old self. You are right now exactly as free as you choose to be. Of course I know what you're thinking. It's not that simple. What if your past is filled with real pain, real failures? What if changing the story feels like lying to yourself? Adler's answer, your past is a fact. But the meaning you give it, that's your choice. Yes, bad things happen. Yes, you made mistakes. But do they define you only if you let them? The past is just a series of events. The power they hold comes not from the events themselves, but from the story you've attached to them. So how do you change that story? First, challenge it. Write down the beliefs you have about yourself. I always fail. I'm not good enough. I'll never be happy. Then ask, is this objectively true? Or just something I've repeated so long, I now believe it? Second, look for proof of the opposite. One moment, one time you were brave, one time you succeeded, find it, name it, hold it close. Third, start acting like the new story is already true. If you believed you were capable, how would you walk into a room? If you believed you were worthy, what would you say yes to? What would you finally say no to? One day, younger me, you'll realize something powerful. Your past is a place of reference, not residence. You don't live there anymore. The pen has always been in your hand, and the moment you decide to write a new chapter is the moment your real life begins. So here we are, younger me. You spent years believing midlife was something to fear. You thought that turning 40 meant the clock was running out. But now you know the truth. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. Carl Jung taught you that you're not broken, you're unfinished. Maslow showed you that success isn't what you have, but who you become. Frankl proved that meaning is not given, it is chosen. Kierkegaard reminded you that fear isn't a wall, it's a doorway. Roger showed you that the moment you stop pretending, you begin to live. And Adler handed you the pen and said, write the story you were born for. You are no longer chasing a life. You are stepping into it. And you younger me, you are finally ready.